So today's presentation, we welcome introductions. We'll talk about what science is, the role of the science teacher or the role of the teacher in the classroom. We'll talk about and discuss effective teaching strategies, which I have experienced and discovered over my teaching. And then we'll finally end and have some questions and feedback. So I think everybody should have a piece of paper, you need your pen. We do a lot of brainstorming here, so I need you to be engaged. I need you to put yourself in, like we were yesterday, but really good experiences. Okay. So our first to start, we'll try and find out what science is to you. You need to discuss with your partner. I think you are sitting in groups. Yesterday we had groups of 3.
Yes, so there are 6 groups in that same order.
I think the same groups should be fine. That's fine, yeah. I think the same groups is fine. You discuss with your partner or your group members what science is to you and then why you think the study of science is important. Why are we teaching science? So that's all. For next, I think 10 minutes or so will be fine, 15 minutes. And then we'll have a few of us share what our discussions ended up with. So let's start with that.
Actually, the study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural environment through observation and experimentation.
Very good.
And then we also come out that it's important because it makes life easy and comfortable. And one also understands its environment.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Mr. Science teacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think science simply is about thinking. Thinking. When you think, then what you come out with thinking, you'll be able to carry out something. That is experimentation.
Okay.
And then the reason why we have to study science is that to understand the world and its phenomena.
Okay.
And also to be able to solve scientific problems. And also to be able to interpret the natural world and its history.
Interesting.
That is how I see it.
Spoken well. Spoken well. Who else? Which we have 2 more groups. Is your group ready? There's nothing wrong here. It's a discussion. There's nothing that will be wrong. I just want to hear what science means to you. So don't be afraid to share. Yeah? Don't be afraid to share.
So, science is a method of obtaining knowledge through observation and experimentation. So, it's important. It serves as a channel of knowledge to mankind.
So we have 2 more groups. Please say something. Yes.
Science is a method of obtaining knowledge through experimentation and observation. And the reason we study science is it increase our fundamental knowledge.
Okay.
And it also gives us better worldview and creates a new technology for us.
Very good. I like that. I think we have 1 more group and then I'll tie everything else together.
Okay, so it's the method of, as she said, using things. And what does
What did she say?
Okay, so she said it's a method of obtaining knowledge through experimentation and observation. Am I correct?
Like I said, you didn't add the last one. Why do you think studying science is important? Why the study of science?
Okay, so it helps balance.
Okay. Very simple. I like that. We've all done well, so let's clap for ourselves. So if we go online, we get a lot of definitions. I keep two. It says science is a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge with testable explanations and helps you predict what happens in the universe. Tells you a little bit of the history. Fine. I don't want to say it's an intellectual and practical activity encompassing a systematic study and structure of and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and what experiment. For me, science. Why is this not working? Okay, science is simply a way of thinking. Simply. You hear that they say, oh, science is just as some way. Or people who do science as some way. It's just simply a way of thinking. You look outside, something is happening in your community. Why does this happen? In the olden days, you realize that, you notice that at certain times in the year, it rains a lot. Or when it rains, certain animals appear. You ask yourself, why does this happen? How come we don't see it in the dry season? It's just these kind of questionings, this kind of thinking that brought about science. Isaac Newton discovered gravity. One of the scientists that is said to have brought about the concept of gravity. He just, apparently, he was sitting under a tree, an apple tree, and an apple hit his head. He got to thinking, why did this apple drop? If I leave something else, will you also drop? So it was that kind of thinking, that observation, that helped him move along. So science for me is just simply a way of thinking. And in your thinking, it helps you understand your physical world, your natural world, and you are able to do what? Create experiments and observations. And in time, you'll notice that if you do these things a certain way, you get the same results. And then you've come up with what? A fact. If somebody else on the other side of the world repeats your method or your methodology, you should get the same. That's basically science. Nothing too difficult. So as teachers, we are teaching science, fine. Why are we teaching science? I answer that if someone says make our life easy. That's true. We all have mobile phones. Yes. They didn't just appear out of nowhere. Somebody sat somewhere and he said that we need to find a way to communicate with a friend in another part of the world or the country. So the telephone came about. And can we find a way to make this telephone smaller so we can carry it in our pocket? The first mobile phone was a huge device. You actually carry it around. But now we can have this small thing in our pockets that does the same thing. We move around in our cars. That didn't just appear out of anywhere. Somebody had to think and he said, we need to find a way to transport ourselves faster. We need to go further. It's just a way of thinking. And he learned other things, put things together. So we had the steam engine, we had the petrol engine, all these things were put together. And we have devices that make our life easier. So that's all science is about. And this is why we study science. So as teachers, we have a role in the classroom. Okay, what is our role? Okay, let's start the next part. What is the role of the science teacher? Like I said, this workshop is a lot of discussions. We'll talk a lot, try and get something from you. Okay, what is the role of the science teacher? The ideal science classroom. I know you've all gone through this before, already been in science lessons. But for you, the ideal science classroom, how should it be like? What characteristics should the ideal science teacher have? We have students, and even it's still a very popular thing. People say that science is hard. I don't like science. I have students that enter my class in the first day of school. I usually have a little conversation. What do you want to study this term or this year? What do you expect to gain from your lessons? And somebody will just raise his hand, usually at least one person. I don't like science. I don't think I'll enjoy your class. What do I have to say? I say, okay. After a few weeks, usually his or her idea of science changes. That means I am doing something a certain way that has made the person understand that science wasn't what they thought. So right now I want us to try and put down together something. What do you think the role of the science teacher is in the classroom? What should the ideal science teacher have to make his class a nice place for students in general? Those who don't like science, those who love science. How would it make it easier for them to appreciate science? What should the ideal science teacher have or do to make science lovely and enjoyable for their students? And I don't think it's just science. I think it's you can even think about other subjects. What does the ideal teacher? What should the ideal teacher have? What should the ideal classroom be like? I think. Don't think too deep. It's just yes.
So our point of view.
Yes.
We think a science teacher should be someone who can be able to motivate his or her learners.
Okay.
And then should also be creative in order to make the environment lively with new things always for the people to always feel good.
Okay.
Learning science.
Okay. I think that's good. That's nice. Anybody else? Yes, Mr.
Yeah, the role of a science teacher is to help learners be able to solve simple life process and life activities.
Okay.
Then also learners to be creative, to be able to come out with new invention or new ideas. So the two these things.
Okay. Anybody else? Let me write your ideas down so that I don't lose track of them.
I think all that they are saying is the science teacher should facilitate experiential learning. That's what I am seeing from the two of them.
Facilitate experiential learning, somebody mentioned creativity. What else did you say? You said he has to be creative. He has to motivate. Anybody else want to add something? The ideal science classroom, what should it be like? You teach science. If you enter your classroom, if you had everything in the world to teach, what would your ideal classroom be like? What would they have? Have I lost some people? Yes.
I think science is full of, almost full of practical.
Yes.
So therefore, you need to get things that you need to perform your practical activities.
Practical activities here. Yes, Mr. Maxwell.
Yeah.
Yes.
The classroom environment should be attractive.
Should be attractive in what sense?
That is displaying of how they call it, learning materials that you have, and then sometimes pictures on the wall. The wall should be talking.
I like that.
I like that.
Talk.
The walls used to talk.
Yeah.
Anybody else
Also
have
have
something? Oh, yeah, yes.
Also try to make sure you have a science corner.
Science corner.
A science corner where you display experiments that are carried out for some time, for them to always visit that corner study, then also a bulletin board in another area where they can display their own research works from where they gathered it from.
Okay. Yes.
There should be instruction and then the guidance, because some of the things are very acidic and other. So the science teacher should also make sure the guidance should be there, so that the student will not go to the higher school of using something that will result in maybe an accident or anything like that.
Okay. I don't think anybody else, apart from the fact that the science needs to be creative, needs to motivate. Those are only things we've said about the ideal science session. Should I go on and talk, or if somebody wants to add something before I go on? No? Okay. So basically, the science teacher's role is as a guide, as we said, a facilitator. You need to facilitate your lessons, not necessarily always coming and dumping information. You've been positioned to lead our students on the path of discovery. Science is really nothing new in the world. We've literally discovered almost everything. So, as a science teacher, you're not expecting your students to discover new knowledge. You are guiding them to relearn or appreciate what has already been discovered. Okay, you can't really teach anybody. They're saying that you can take a horse or a camel to the riverside, but you can't force the camel to drink. So as a teacher, you are supposed to bring your students to the riverside of knowledge. Once they know what the river contains, they'll be willing to sip from it and drink and get full, nourish themselves. And hopefully they can come up with something greater. We've been talking about innovations. That's where the creativity comes in. We talk about critical thinking. As teachers, this is what we are supposed to be doing. You don't, if I start talking out, skipping steps. Okay, so a good teacher does motivate. You mentioned it. Motivate our teachers. It enable them to learn. And that's, for me, that is the key point. Enable your students to learn, and then the rest becomes easy. Then your job is halved. It makes it easier for you. Is that okay? Alright, so let's get into the meat of this actual workshop. Alright, we have, the characteristics of an effective science teacher. Every teacher should actually know what they are teaching. Okay, that's a general point. You should have excellent mastery of the subject. You are teaching plants today. I don't expect the teacher will come to class having not revised what they are supposed to be teaching. Otherwise, you have very naughty in quotes who want to expose you. They ask you certain questions. And if you are not ready and you can't answer the questions, and then your other students will be wondering, but teacher, something, a problem somewhere. So you should have excellent mastery of the subject. In that way, no matter how the lesson goes, you'll be able to maneuver and dance your way around the questions of your students, so that you answer your questions well, your students will want to be, teacher, they're very smart, knows a lot. Maybe you want to be like you. You're supposed to motivate them. And motivation is not just, I know you can do it. It's looking at you. Are you showing yourself as a good scientist? I have a student that calls me fellow scientist because he enjoys my lessons, and when he goes home, he goes to disturb his mother. I want to be like Mr. Dzandu. So take me to EBP, let me buy these books. I want to do experiments. You go online. Only because when I taught him, I was able to motivate him without directly always telling him, oh, you need to study, you need to do this. No. I believe every teacher, especially science teachers, you need to be childlike. And don't misunderstand this one. To be childlike, for me, is to be a curious person. All of us, I won't say all of us, but some of us are trained around. And be honest, when you are not around, you will be touching things. There might be fire there, a child will want to touch it. You might have told that child, don't touch, put your hand in the fire to bend it, but hold the child. Once you turn around, you want to try it. Not because he hasn't heard you. Child is curious, wants to know what happens. Mommy says if I try to bend you, will it actually bend you? He just wants to touch it. You might have your car there with your keys. Daddy says don't touch the keys. But every day I see Daddy putting the key here. Let me go and deliver it to do the same thing. Children are curious, so we need to stay curious. We need to want to know, how do I've been teaching this subject or this topic for a long time. How else can I teach it to make it exciting? Or what else can I learn? What more can I add? You don't sit, like they say, every man, human beings are not islands. You need to interact. We are social people. You need to learn from others. So is the science teacher in the next school doing something different? Let me go and find out. Don't sit down and be okay with the way you've been teaching your science. Oh, every day I come, I tell them what to do. They answer my questions, I am satisfied. No. Okay, you need to be a lifelong learner. That's all it is about. You need to be creative. Same problem. I need to teach them how to do X, Y, Z. Is there any other way I can do it? Maybe this time, instead of staying in the classroom, let's go outside. Let's go and experience what we are teaching so that it makes your life easier. It makes their life easier. They enjoy your lessons. Use this example. Before I came to GIS to teach, I was doing teaching practice in a school in Accra, in Adenta. I came to teach second term and third term. I taught O-level biology and A-level biology. At the end of the second term, students came, please, I hope you're not leaving this term. I'm like, why? Oh, we enjoy your lessons more than the other. Not to say that the other teacher wasn't doing a good job. Because my lessons are different. I like having conversations in class. We'll get into that later, but my lessons are not always, I'm giving you this, go and learn this. I try and find out what the student knows. We discuss the topic. What do you know about, if you're doing, maybe states of matter. It's technical. But then they've all experienced states of matter. So you try and find out what they know. You try and link it to what they already know. And then you build on their knowledge. Simple as that. So up to now, you still have students who are emailing you or contact you. Oh, thank you for this. You made science beautiful for me. Already, I know here in this school, you have students who are part of, I would say, building the school, painting and building offices. For them, you've made the subject, I think, pre-tech. Yes. It's something that they've enjoyed. And you have some of them leaving school and still continuing in that vein. Your teachers should be creative to be able to deliver lessons in different ways and more interesting ways so that your students are engaged. Are we okay? Yeah. Any questions so far?
Well, I would like to add up to the master that I want to teach in your school. So the master said, okay, which class? Just name it. He said class 3. Now, which subject are you passing? He said science. So what I'm going to teach in the class, I said living things and non-living things. Okay, go ahead. So the master decided to put the woman to the class. The one on the board, living things and non-living things. So she decided to define everything. So we said living things are things that perform movement or action. And the children were looking at her. So after everything, the children started asking questions. So one little girl just asked, Madam, he said living things are things that perform action or movement. So if I have a toy and I put battery inside and it is moving, is it living things or not living things? The madam was just looking at the child. Simply because he did not think of how far the children can ask her questions. So she was not there looking at them. And the master too is standing there. So look at the master, look at the children, and she's confused. She couldn't utter a word. So I think the unnecessary knowledge should be something that we should deal with. You should be able to weigh the brain of the children before you go to the class. You should have ×3 of what they are having. If not, you will get yourself embarrassed in the class. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, Mr.
Yes. As you've mentioned, and he's mentioning that some children are way smarter than us.
Yes.
And the unfortunate or fortunate part is that we have to stand in front of them and teach them. And some of them, as Dzandu has mentioned, they want to expose you that you don't know much. So they'll come and ask you questions. Some questions you do not know them. And it's okay to tell that child, I do not know.
Yeah, yes.
I'm going to go home and do homework tomorrow, and let's compare homeworks. In fact, the entire class, let's do it as a homework, because I don't know. And all of us in this class, we're lifelong learners. And that's when you're going to start connecting with your children.
Yes.
They will see that he's like us, and he wants to know just like us. He doesn't come as a big person with a lot of 1 terabyte of information to just give it to us. So we just don't know. That's what I wanted to say.
And it's okay to tell the children that I don't know, I'll look it up. Okay, or you assign that student. I told you about my student last, but because sometimes she would ask rhetorical questions, you know. She would ask us like, okay, maybe, you think you should go and find out and then you tell us tomorrow. And then also you as a teacher, of course, you have to go back and, look it up.
Thank you. So that's a very good scenario there. It happens to me sometimes. I use the same method. But let's all go and read about it. Let's get to the actual part of my workshops. I want to find out how you guys actually teach, how you would deliver certain lessons. So I have 75 topics on the board. Okay, you have plant parts and their function, or just plants. You have properties and uses of materials or materials. You have states of matter. We have electricity. You have magnets. I'm not asking for a lesson plan. Okay, I just want to know how you will deliver such a lesson, how you introduce it, what are you going to do after your introduction, and how you end your lesson. Just that. So that's not long. I think this should be done, I think,
15 minutes.
I put 15 minutes. That's supposed to include our discussion. If you manage to extend outside discussions, that's fine. 15 minutes.
15 minutes later.
And so, from the beginning, we will ask the students to go outside and bring any plants you've seen in the environment or around the school.
So we just run out.
They go out within some few minutes to uproot that and quickly bring it back to class. And then you ask them to group themselves, or you group them, and then in their groups they observe critically the plant. Yes, and they should be able to identify some parts of that plant and bring it out. So the way they are able to identify leaves. Some people say stem, some talk about the root, some mention fruits, and some mention flowers. And so with that, you go on to ask them one after the other the parts mentioned. They should tell us, or they should be able to tell us through brainstorming and tell us the purpose or what those parts do to the plant in general, what function they perform in the life of that plant. And so you'll be able to tell us the leaf helps in photosynthesis by absorbing sunlight, and then the stem supports the plant, and then fruit protects the seed. And so they go on to tell us that the root absorbs water and minerals from the ground, and flowers helps in the reproduction. So after all, you come out to generalize and analyze all they tell you, and then you give them the facts of what they have given to you.
Okay. Not bad.
I like that's the reason why you have to come first.
Anybody else done? Okay. Want to share?
Yeah. So over here we have. You decided to go out or not go out? I decided to stay in the class. So first of all, I have to ask them if I want them to know the concept of what I'm coming to teach today. So today I started, before we start tomorrow, this is what we'll be talking about. So we're talking about plants and their parts. So, but I would like to talk about a living tree. So when you are going home, any tree that you see standing, just look at it. And then tomorrow we come, I'll ask you a question. So already have it in mind that says going to ask about a tree. So when they come in the morning, I'll try to ask them. So on your way home, did you see any tree? They say yes. How was it? They said, oh, we said he's having some leaves. Let's assume the child doesn't know what is leaves, the stem or the trunk. So I said that he's having hairs on the tree. And then the center part is straight. And the other one is embedded into the ground, so they cannot say anything about it. Okay, that is a living tree. Now go straight to the board and then draw a very nice, if I can't draw, I can try. A very nice tree on the board. Then when they give me answers of what they have find out. So he said he saw hairs on the tree. So the hairs, this is the name. It can be the leaves or the crown. Then from there, we have the center part of the tree. That is also known as what? The trunk or the stem. So there's one better part that you do not see. It is within what? The ground or beneath the ground. That one is the root, which is holding the living tree from falling. So I can level all these parts for them to see. Then I'll ask them, do you know anything about the hairs that is on the tree? What does it have to human being or the tree itself? Then the child will tell you, if wind is going to be doing like this or like that. I say, okay, fine. That is it. The ground over there you are seeing, to humanity, it serves as what? Shade to humanity. But the tree itself, it has what? Sunlight to the tree. And also serves as the shade to the tree itself as well. Then when it comes to the trunk, humanitarian ground, the trunk also serves as what? Medicinal purposes. At the same time, the leaf also serves as medicinal purposes. And then the trunk is also used for constructional purposes. The chair you are sitting on, you get it from the trunk. And your parents have been cooking with charcoal. So the charcoal, we can also use the trunk and some of the branches for charcoal. And then I move on to the roots. The roots also serve as medicinal purpose. At the same time, hold the tree firmly onto the soil and also absorb mineral elements and then salt and water from the ground to the tree to produce fruits and other things. So from there, I'll ask them if they really got the concept of what I'm saying. They will say yes, because they only know about the hair and then the middle part. Okay, so what did you learn apart from the hair and then the middle part? So they will say that we learn that there are some parts which is hidden in the ground, which is the root that hold the tree standing. Then I will ask them to do the practical example. Come and stand. So you stand like this. So I'll push you. You go sideways. But if you stand like this and I push you, you will stand firm. Then simply because the root is not going down straight. It is spread on the ground. So that's when the wind is blowing all around, the root will be able to hold it in position. Then we also have one, which is the tap roots that go straight into the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, you go last. You go last. Mr. Doctor will go last.
You want to taught the lesson?
Yeah, it's a very beautiful lesson. I loved it. Really loved it. And I think his method is something that is we know as flipped classrooms. I'll put it there, I'll discuss it later. Who else is ready? Yes.
So we picked plant parts and their functions.
Everybody likes plants. Because it's easy to teach.
So for me, since I'm teaching in K3, so what I'm going to do is I'll send them out. So first of all, I'm going to explain what plant is. So plants are living things that grow on land or in water. So after the explanation, we are going to go out, look for maybe those young plants and uproot it, bring it back to the class so that we can identify the plants. So after the identification, so we have the leaves, stem and the roots, and we talk about the function. So the first one is leaves. So I have to explain to them that the leaves produce food for the plant by photosynthesis. And the roots also absorb water and nutrients from the soil as well. And the stem also supports the leaves, so that's that. And I think I have to inform them about the importance of plants. That's food, water, and shelter.
Thank you very much. Very beautiful. You guys have a problem. Okay. You're the first to go to the radio. So You are ready for
What
it.
is your
We are
subject?
just
What subject or what topic? Sorry. I think you guys chose a different topic.
well, need to issue.
But if you've already
So
done,
we choose another topic.
because everybody thinks. Honestly, I think everybody did plans. Mr. Nacho,
Yes, sir.
I think we can go on. I think the other groups are not ready for us.
Yeah, in this situation, what happened is that, first of all, the keywords,
Please, which topic?
okay, I want to talk about materials, properties and uses of materials.
Okay.
In this situation, you need to let the children know that every subject has its language. And you put the keywords that you will be dealing with in the topic. You put it on the board for them. After that, try to first of all let the keywords, you put the keywords on the board. Go through with them. Because that is the language you are expecting them to know in the topic. You you explain those keywords to the children, that's the upper classes. After that, you enter into the lesson by asking the children to bringing in different materials into the class. To bring different materials that they have around into the class. Now, because we want to know the properties and uses of those materials, we have to let them use it in the way they want to use it. To allow the children to use or deal with those materials, play with those materials at that particular time. For example, if you take this, the bottle, the plastic bottle, let them feel it, play with it. When you take a stone, let them feel it, play with it. If it's a stick, they are bringing all these materials to the class. So they have to have a feel of all these things and see how these materials can work. Fine. One of these things I want to talk about is when we talk about the plastic material, it can be changed into another form. You can change it into another form. Okay, what makes it to be, or what makes, or why you ask them, why do they think this material can be changed into another form? Then you are coming into the what? The properties of the container. You allow them to do what? To think critically and come out with their views. The way you take the clay, for instance, how you ask them to come out with what they've seen in playing with the clay. What do you think, or what do they think they can use the clay to do? And why do they think they can use the clay to create this? By so doing, they are going to come out with the what? The properties and the uses of these materials by themselves. They will bring it out by themselves. They are going to do the talking, and you will not talk so much. Yes, I think this is how sometimes I go about teaching properties of materials and their uses.
Thank you very much.
Mix it as well. After mixing it, then we'll go and put it in a refrigerator for some time. they will go for it. They will see the state of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not bad.
And that means we are preparing ice cream.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't know. Please write down there.
Please, I don't want to have a running stomach.
The process was near this.
We use egg and we use
So it means all
custard. Custard, that's what I was going to say. Custard.
Thank you very much.
So please,
just make custard.
we'll prepare the custard as in the form of a product.
Okay. Okay.
This guy.
I don't like that.
Thank you very much. I think it's left to your group.
Let me go with plants.
No worries.
So I remember when I taught children plant, that was so many years ago, not now. So I know that plant is everywhere. I want the children themselves to plant the plant. I ask them to bring the seed, the maize. So I ask them to plant the maize. We plant, we put it there, we display them in the classroom. But I didn't tell the children what I really want to do. So every morning they will go there and look at it. So the corn grew up and the leaves comes out. They were all happy. So what is making the plant to grow? I said because of the water, because they themselves the water it. So the maize grow up and the leaves comes out and everything. But the only thing we didn't get is the flower. The flower was not on the top because we cannot wait. So I made them to understand that plants, we can plant it up, we can plant it. Animals can also do the same thing, like sometimes they swallow seed. So you see that the plant, when they defecate in that place, a plant will start growing up, and other animals like that. So from that moment, when the plant grows and the leaf is there, I told them that this is a plant. I said, you look at this plant, you plant it yourself. So what makes it to grow is the water. Without the water, the plant cannot grow. So I make them, because they were little big, class 1. I said, you see the root that is holding the plant. That is where the plant is eating. I said the root is the one that is serving the plant food. So without the roots, there is no how the plant can eat. So it's just like human being that we eat through our mouth. So the roots help the plant to get food from the soil. Now, when we have to say, okay, now this plant is good. Look at the leaves. The leaves also support the plant. Without the leaf, the plant will not be able to get what do we call this? Sunlight. So I make them to understand that the plant also needs sunlight. The sunlight helps them to grow. The direction of the light, the plant will go to that side. If the rays of the light is coming from this side, that is where the plant goes, because they also need sunlight to grow well. So we talk about the root, and we talk about the stem, and we talk about the leaf. What I did is, because the maize was not having the we tried to get some of the plant from outside. And the one that is having plant, they will protect it and they bring it to the classroom. We use it to explain that. So that is it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Every single person here has given me or given us their outline, and you've actually touched on almost everything I will be talking about. Okay, maybe I'll just put names to it, but you've actually touched on almost everything. I think I will take some of your ideas, because I don't do some of them, and we'll take it back to my place. Okay, I'm just going to quickly talk about this, and then we can go on and come back. do the rest of this workshop. All right, so traditionally, teachers, all we come to do is we talk. So there's the traditional teaching strategy, which is known as the teacher-centered strategy, or some people say the lecturer style, or the sage on the stage. The sage is somebody who knows everything. So all that teacher will come and do is to come and give information. They don't care what the student knows. They don't care at that moment. They'll tell you, wait till the end of class, you can ask questions. They'll give you notes to write. And at the end of the term or the end of the topic, the teacher will tell you that, okay, you have a test. Go and do the test. And you have to give me exactly what I have given you. You divert or deviate small, we will tell you that it's wrong. When I was in university, I think my second year, one lecturer, oceanography, we did a test. He came, he says I failed. But when I pick my notes and I pick his notes he gave us and I pick my answers, I don't see the difference. The only difference is that I didn't use his words. But if you read the thing, the understanding is the same thing. And a lot of us teachers do this because it's easier for you to mark. It's easier for you to take what you've given because it's your own words. Okay, and I don't think this method is the ideal method for teaching science. I believe science has to be experienced. I can't come and tell you that a plant has this number of plants. A plant has this number of parts. These are the parts that I mentioned. Leaf, stem, and roots. This is what the leaf does. This is what the stem does. This is what the root does. The child would hear you all right, but he hasn't experienced it. He hasn't seen it for himself. When I teach plants, we go outside and I ask them, okay, you see that little plant there? Try and pull it out for me. So they start pulling it. And I ask, when you were pulling it, what did you feel? And the plant didn't want to come out. So, okay. Then I keep on asking them questions related to what the activity is. Then we go to the classroom and then we start to identify the plants. And I explain, maybe the roots are to anchor the plant or to support the plant, to keep them in the soil. That is why when you're trying to pull it out, it was difficult. And I said, okay, so next time when you ask them a question, function of the roots, they remember what they did in that class, or we try to pull out. So even if they can't remember exactly what you said, they will be able to put their experience into what? Their own words. You see the picture there? The child is having what? Something poured into his head. It's just information. You pour the information there. Whether the child understands it or not, most of the time we don't really care. Teachers that use this method, most of the time we don't really care. We expect to do memorize, or what to say in Ghana, chew and pour. That's it. So when you have a student in your class who cannot chew and pour, you say he's not smart. It's not that he's not smart. He just can't chew and pour. And then he will start hating science. We'll talk about that one. When I started teaching, I did this. I realized that I wasn't getting through to my students. So I had to find new ways to teach. I'm sure we've all done this before. When we are tired, when we don't prepare enough for our lesson, we just come in for information. Yes?
Yes, in addition to what you're saying, it's just that I forgot the name of this philosopher. He wrote something about the pedagogy of the oppressed. So he's saying that as educators, we are using this depositor-depositee system where we take information and just deposit it into our children. So there's no synthesis, there's no processing of information. So I concur with what you're saying. Or just to scaffold what you are saying. Yeah.
Anybody else want to say something? I think it's almost 12:30. If I start the next part of my workshop, we'll go past lunchtime. So if there's no question for now, or you want to ask questions when we come back. Yes.
Now, science is a very broad topic.
Yes.
So there are some definitions Then compare it to the subject I teach. That's the pre-tech.
Okay.
Has to do a lot of science.
Yes.
When it comes to electricity, materials, and then plants, they are there. So if a science teacher decided to ask a student to define a plant
Okay.
in a scientific way, so if the child decided not to define it, but you rather use what I taught in the class to define it, is it wrong or bad?
Okay, so when you are teaching, what is your main aim? Is for the child to understand the concept.
Yes.
Fine. But in science, like you said, yeah, technical stuff, there's definitions.
Yes.
Definitions are definitions.
Some teachers don't take it.
Definitions don't change. Okay? Definitions are definitions. But if your aim is to have the student understand the concept, I don't expect you to, at the end of your teaching, bring a test or an exam and just put in definitions. A lot of teachers do this. You say, okay, define this, define that. All you see is definition, or tell me what this is, tell me what that. Or you give objectives, and it's literally the same thing. If yesterday, I think someone brought the pyramid,
The Bloom's taxonomy.
Bloom's taxonomy, you realize that true and poor, or just recollecting, is at the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy.
Yes.
That's not what education is about. You can ask for definitions, but don't make your whole assessment be based on just true and poor or recollection. You are not helping your students at all. You have students who can chew definitions, but don't understand what you just told.
Yes.
As science teachers, you are supposed to make sure they understand the concept. So even though you wake them up in the middle of the night and you have a problem, give them a problem, they can use the science they've learned to solve the problem. That is why, in some ways, the science is to make your life easier.
Yes.
Why are you making it difficult for a child by telling a child to memorize definition of plants, definition of osmosis, or definition? It's not helpful. Definitions are important, yes, but don't base your assessments on that. So your questioning, your assessments should dive deeper into that, to creating answers or analyzing the questions that force them to analyze situations, force them to debate, discuss, not just recollection of definitions. Have I?
Yes. Well understood.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Time is 12:30. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Madam, are you okay?
I'll be okay, so you let's start.
Before we left for our wonderful meals, we were talking about teaching strategies. Should I carry? We were talking about teaching strategies, and I spoke about the traditional strategy of teaching, which is the teacher-centered, the lecturer style. And we had a little discussions. And we left. So now I'm going to go ahead and speak about what I found out to be the recommended way to teach science, which is called the inquiry-based learning, the inquiry style of teaching. This style is different from the teacher-centered one. Instead of the teacher coming here to deliver information, instead of the whole lesson being focused on the teacher, this one emphasizes the student. Okay, the student plays a very important role. So instead of the teacher having 100% role in teaching and learning, you have the student having a greater role than before. The teacher just acts as a guide. Okay, you have students are encouraged to actually explore the subject matter in forms of having discussions, group work. They don't just come and take from the teacher. Okay, we have different types of approaches when it comes to inquiry-based learning. Before I go on to look at these examples, does anybody have a question? Does anybody have a question on this, or should I fly ahead? I can go. May your lunch be with you. Amen. All right, so the approaches I would like us to talk about or discuss today, the project-based learning approach. You have the research and presentations, which Mr. Maxwell does a lot of, and hands-on activities, which we all do a lot of. These three I have found out through research and experience are very important. And some of the best ways to teach scientific concepts and help your students apply the science that they've learned. I don't know whether anybody here would like to try and explain, if they want understanding, what these three approaches mean. Have you met it before? Or do you want to discuss it in your groups? Share. Would somebody like to explain? Let's
So on the project base, that's what I have to deal with. You're giving them a specific task, maybe in a group. So a project will look for this and come together we discuss. So what did I gathered from the field of the inquiry? You went all the task given to you. That is the project work, project base. Then the research. You have heard of the thing. You want to know more about it. You have to go investigate into the thing. After that, you come with view. You come and present to the class. Or the other teacher sitting down there to know that you want to make research about the thing. So you have to go investigate into the particular topic given to you. And then come and present to the rest of the class. Or you can also be in the group way as well. Then the last one.
Okay, I'll give us everything. Okay, go ahead.
Then the hands-on activity is the physical part of doing the thing. You have to fix it or you touch it. Let's put them together. Then we will arrive at this particular project. So that is like more or less like practical. That's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's clap for you. I know our lunch is weighing us down, but I'll need us to try and engage us. Stay away. Thank you very much, Mr. Alice. What he said is good. Anybody else with something to add? You want to add something? Please go ahead.
He's talking about research.
Yes.
It's not necessary maybe you know the thing before you go for research on it. Research is something you are not even having knowledge of it. So you are being given a topic. Go and find out. So you will discover what it really is, what's the topic they give you. Because you've not even, it may be something that is practical. It may be something you are going to write. So you will discover it yourself. You are not having the idea. Through the research, you know what the thing is all about.
Okay. That's yes. It's a science channel.
Okay. Thank you. Research always comes when you think about what to do. You think about you want to know how a hummingbird feeds. So you have to you think about the whole thing. So how do you do it? You have to quickly go around, moving from one place to another to see a hummingbird. You have to see the bird performing that activity. Then you write whatever you see the bird doing down. And that, in terms of the presentation, all the findings, you bring it and come and present to the class of what you've seen around. So research comes when you also observe. Project based is when you give a child to build something, to do something. Now, this child must make sure that he or she presents the actual idea that you want. Then all hands on activities. This is when all the children gather around. They put their hands together. You also bring your idea. Okay, let's do this side this way. Okay, this is what I also think about this way. Let's all put our hands on deck and come out with a solution to a problem. That is all I have.
Thank you for your submission. Anybody else have something to say? No? Yes? No? Mr. Beautiful?
You said it all.
You've said it all. Okay. I'll start off by talking about hands-on activities. So in science, pick any topic. Be it materials, be it plants, be it magnets. You can't just come to class and tell the children what magnets are. Okay? You need to have them experience it, experiential learning. Okay, and so instead of just talking about, fine, a magnet has two parts. You have North Pole, South Pole. When you put North Pole and North Pole together, it will repel. What does repel mean? And to go away from each other. But say, I don't understand. So instead of doing that, you can just bring the magnets to class. If you have enough magnets, give everybody at least a magnet. Let them touch it. Oh, put your magnet close to your neighbor's magnet. What happens? Turn it around. What happens? They will feel or experience anything and they will tell, oh, when I place this part of my magnet on my neighbor's magnet, it's stuck together. And when I turn it around, it did this, it did that. So through that, they're actually experiencing the technical things you should have told them or you are going through. You haven't yet mentioned anything yet, but they've learned. At that point in time, there's some knowledge that has been gained, all by just doing a small activity at the beginning of the lesson. So from there, this is just an example. From there, you can then explain that when the magnet you are holding has two parts. We mentioned the poles, North Pole, South Pole. You put this part together, what do you notice? Oh, it came together. That coming together is attraction. Oh, it pushed away from each other, or it didn't want me to stick to it. That is the magnet repelling itself. So in science, every single lesson should have that opportunity for the child to actually have some activity done, some experience of the concepts. And it makes it easier for the child to then remember when you have an assessment or an exam, or even 10 years down the line, they will remember what they do. I think there's a saying, there's a Chinese saying, where if you tell me, I forget. When I see, it's then when I do, when I see. So the most important level of learning has to do with actual experience, hands-on stuff, tactile stuff. They need to actually be doing something in class that will aid in the learning. So every lesson you are going to teach, is there any opportunity for me to bring something in class for the child to experience? Yes. If it's materials, you mentioned, you bring different materials to class. They get to touch them. You've explained what properties are. Properties basically describing what the material is like, what the material can do. So then in the list, you have sandpaper. What are the properties of sandpaper? Touch it, feel it, play with it. Then they'll come up, oh, it's rough. And when I rub it together, it makes a sound. It's hard. When I try and tear it, maybe it was hard to tear. So all of a sudden, you are not saying anything. You've only told them what a property is. But then they are able to list.
Z 340 to 345 BC. When I hear, when I see, I remember. When I do, I understand.
Thank you. So that understanding, the whole idea of science is to make your students understand the concept. We're not coming up with any new information. Like I said, science, a lot has already been done. What we are doing in school is just to help our students and learners understand what has already been done. Okay? So So that's literally every single lesson you're going to have. Look for those opportunities. Can they experience it? If they can, you find the materials you need, you bring it in, you do it. And that solves your work half. The next thing I would like to talk about is the research and presentations. And that one too, Mr. Maxwell does a lot of it. You have a topic, maybe you've introduced it in class, you've done something. Okay, I want you to go and read about it. You can either use the internet, if you have the internet, you have a smartphone, or go to a library, pick this textbook or something, read about it, or ask mommy, ask daddy. When you go to the farm, what time do you plant, what time of the year do you plant your seeds? When you don't water or when the rain doesn't come, what happens? So, if you are teaching plants, for example, instead of coming to class and telling them the needs of a plant, what the plant is, they've already gone home to do their research. When you come to class, it's more of an interaction you are going to have. And they'll tell them, oh, some plants don't need a lot of water. And you'll find out through their research. Instead of you always come to tell them everything, you might forget some things when you come and decide to give them all the information. If they go and ask, you will learn better. For example, when I was young, like I said, my father was a teacher. And apparently, I had a very bad habit. My mother called it a bad habit of asking too many questions. And she said, go to your father. So I will ask my father the same question. He will tell you, I have textbooks lying on the table. Go and read. Or you pick a textbook, 10 to page 365, 10 to this, 10 to chapter this. Go and read. When I go and read, obviously I'll get confused. We tell you that confusion is good. Because I have tried to read. There's something in my mind, I might not understand it completely. But when I come back to the teacher and we are discussing, when I go back to and we are discussing, or when your students come back to class and you are discussing, and then as you speak, as you hear what they are giving you, you are able to correct the confusion. And that way understanding comes and it's like a light bulb. It clicks. And they will understand and remember that interaction much better than if you tell them, okay, plants need this X, Y, Z. Go, I'll give you a test next week. Am I making sense? Yes. That's all. Any questions? Or I should move on. Should I go on? No. I should move on. Alright, so the project-based learning, it's just simply giving them a task or a question to solve, linked to a topic you are teaching. It could be recycling, it could be materials, it could be plants, anything is supposed to just give them a task related to something that they are studying. Have them do it. I think you mentioned, I think you did entrepreneurs, yes. You had them grow crops and then sell. At the end of that period of work, if you ask them what are the inputs for a farm, they can tell you need seeds, you need labor, you need to care for the plants, you need to make sure that they have the soil is fertilized. If there's deficiencies in the soil, you need to, when the crops are ready, you need to now go to the market to produce and sell it. If you ask them how to reduce waste, I'm sure they'll be able to tell you something. Instead of you coming to class and then tell them, okay, to run a farm, you need X, Y, Z. Easy to do this. The understanding is there, much will be there better than if you just teach them or just talk to them. So project-based learning, there are so many ways or so many avenues for that. For recycling, you're teaching them about pollution, for example. So recycling material. But some materials are biodegradable, some are not. So those that are not, for example, for in Ghana, our major problem is plastic. Okay, what can we do to reduce plastic? Go and think about it. If you want to create a company that will do the plastic, go and create your company, come and talk about what your company will do. Some people will say, okay, fine, let's recycle. Let's use our empty bottles to do something else. I think you showed me an example, they created a stool from plastic bottles. I wouldn't have thought about that. Usually when I think of plastic bottles, I create cups. And I realized it's not even safe because I cut my mouth when I cut the top. But that's a creative way of solving an issue. So you give them the opportunity to think about problems in their environment. What problems exist in our community, or even at home, or even in the school? So whole school, or even the community as well, what problems do you guys see? How can we solve it using what we are learning? How does it relate to what we are learning in class? How can we then solve it? You give them opportunities to do that. And when they are done, they come back, they will have learned more than you could have ever given them in that 1 hour or even 4-week stretch of lessons. Do you get?
The project with my daughter, once she went to look at paper, she says I also gave them a project to do.
Okay.
So she went to buy super glue. So I said, super glue is not safe for you to use it. She didn't mind. She got finished. I said, this one you can't use it. She got finished, she went to buy another one. So she went by the 3rd time. Now she said, Daddy, do you have paper glue? Because she was doing it, she realized it was not her. So the project, within the project, they learn other things. They themselves discover. They themselves discover. They know they have to use glue. But she decided that I have to use spag. That's what her mind tells her. But when I told her that you can't use spag glue to do it, she didn't understand. But when she started, she was wasting the glue. And it was getting, her hand was in her hand. Then she now thought of it, Daddy, we have paper glue. that is it. So they discover their own methods as well. Even the work, yes.
She's talking about it, you ask what materials do you use. You say
paper glue. She uses paper glue.
When you argue with her, she will tell you, I've done it before, and then when you use super glue, this is the result you're going to get.
Any other person want to add on something? So you notice that with the project-based learning, even though you are doing it through science, maybe you are doing recycling, they are learning other things. And you'll start linking it with the other subjects that they are already doing. And it improves their critical thinking, their analysis. Okay? You have something to say? Yes.
When you're done.
Okay. It improves their critical thinking, their creativity, and most often than not, you put them in groups. So group work, cooperation. I think Mr. Stanley talked about some, that's with the other group media. Yes. So it's not just science you are now teaching them, you are creating a more rounded learner. Is that okay? Right. So,
yes,
Mr. Yes.
Yeah, in addition to what you say, what I discovered, because this is my pedagogy, when you use this approach, students learn, they actually improvise. Yes. You know, they learn to improvise. So, yeah. That's what I was saying.
Improvisation is one of the advantages. Okay. So on the screen you have ideas for inquiry-based learning. Okay, and these are some of the things you need to think about if you want to incorporate these into your lessons. What will the students learn? What are they going to create? What will they solve? Okay, and you need to link it to what they love doing. So it's most often than not, at our back in our school, we have a week that is dedicated to project-based, I won't say learning, but projects. They have to look around their community, their class, and come up with problems that they want to solve. So with that, you have covered what they are interested in, what they want to learn, what they want to create. And obviously, as they are thinking of the topics or the projects they want to do, they are thinking about the impact they will have. So it's not like I said a few minutes ago, it's not just one direction as in science you are teaching them. You are now helping them apply what they've learned in class to their community. Okay? So now when they finish, they leave you and they go to university, things are easier for them. They learn things now, their brain is able to think creatively of solutions to problems. When they ask them a question, they won't be looking at it from one direction or the teacher's point of view, but they will be able to do it from different directions. How can we solve this problem? Okay, so I think these will be shared with you, so there's no need to try and copy it down. But these are some ideas for project-based learning. Is that okay? I think before we get to this, I'm sure some will be asking, what are some examples what are some examples of project learning we can actually do? There are many, you mentioned a few. There's recycling, there's, where's my roadmap? I'll come back to it when I remember. But for now, let's look at this. I think I forgot your name, madam. Madam, we call you Madam Nigeria. Yes. Yes, she asked me a question. She said something about her daughter. Well, something that science is hard. People say science is hard. I think that's a general perception in this part of the world. Science is not that hard. But let's discuss here. I think the next 10 minutes, we use 5 minutes to share what we have. Don't worry, I think this is one of the last parts of my slide, so I know the food is very kind. How do we dismantle the students' fear of science? What can we do as teachers to make sure that they come to class happy, they come to class willing to learn? How do we make sure they are actually grasping what we are teaching and they don't come to class with a mental block? You can discuss this with the people in your groups, as you've always done, and then in about 10 minutes, I think I would ask you to share. And when we come back, we'll go back to some examples. Should I carry you? Okay. So how can we dismantle the students' fear of science? What can you do?